for living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
I want to talk to you for a few moments from the subject, simply spare some change. Spare some change. Spare some change. In any major metropolis in America and perhaps around the world, you go into the downtown area and you're going to find indigent individuals who are down on their luck, just asking for some change, some spare change. And sometimes I believe that they get the wrong response because they're asking for the wrong question. If you're in a down position in your life, it is not the spare change that will really change your life. It is the change that God has placed in their heart, that He has brought in their heart as a result of the gift of grace of who He is. How He changes a woman's life, how He changes a man's life. It is not the change that comes from your pocket, it is the change that comes from your heart that really blesses people. When you give people change from your purse, change from your pocket, you do not change their life, you only empower them to stay in the same condition where they are. It is as though you are feeding their habit. The man was asking for a handout. I'm glad Peter and John were broke that day. I didn't say they were poor, I said they were broke. Peter was not a broke man. I mean, he owned a house. He owned the fishing industry. When Jesus wanted to get out on a boat, he had to borrow Peter's boat. So Peter was not poor, Peter was broke. You do know the difference. Broke is a temporary situation, poor is a state of mind. Peter just didn't have anything with him. He was going to the temple to pray. And but he was broken. He said, listen, I don't have a nickel to my name. Anybody ever been there? It just shows you that you don't always help people best by giving them money. If that were true, then it would not be, the statistics would not be true that 80% of the people that win the lotto are bankrupt within 5 years. Because money is not the answer to that problem, because they've been asking the wrong question. I am today in the place where I am, I believe, because I've asked the right questions. I've asked the right kinds of questions. Solomon became a blessed man because when God gave him an opportunity to write a blank check, Solomon knew how to ask for the right thing. He didn't ask for money. He asked for the right thing. And sometimes we think that money will fix our life, but we are too short in our sight. It's like the children of Israel when they were coming out, those Hebrew children were coming out of slavery in Egypt, and they kept wanting to go back to Egypt because they were not eating as good in the wilderness as what they were eating back in Egypt. And here they are on their way to deliverance, to a better promised land, to be able to have a land that was their own. And the only thing that they could think of is, I am sick of this manna. I'm tired of this stuff that's coming down, this boring meal. I know what we're having for lunch. The same thing we had for breakfast. And at dinner time, you know, they became gods off of the same old, and they started wanting to go back to Egypt where they had all of this luxurious food. They ate well, but they were under the taskmaster. And isn't it interesting how when you are only fixated on your current need, instead of something that is going to benefit you in the long run, I mean, whenever you become focused on the current need, you become enslaved because you are focusing on the temporal as opposed to eternal, something that has greater value in your life. And I've seen individuals who will go back to an abusive relationship because he loved me, instead of realizing that here is where I am, and even though I'm not able to eat like I was able to eat back there, I remember things going upside my head. And see, it's amazing how rapidly you can forget the abuse that happened there and only think about how you were eating, that the benefits that came. But you've got to realize that it's not only the pros, you have to look at the cons. And the cons of Egypt were outlaying the pros. And when they got in the wilderness, they wanted to go back to the pros because they had lost conscious of the cons. Whenever you forget the ultimate, you become a slave to the immediate, and you lock yourself into a current position. And so the greatest ability that we have in order to be able to help people is not what we are able to give them out of our pockets, but what we're able to give from our heart. It is the change, the spare change that comes from the heart. Because when you really think about it, you don't have the power to change anybody but yourself. Change is an internal thing. You know, I'm not a changer. I'm an agent of change. I'm a catalyst where I stimulate a desire for change in the hearts of other people. But if I don't connect something and turn something on internally where it becomes the motivator, if I can't do that, all that I can do is provoke a person towards something. That's what a catalyst does. It is a provoker that provokes us toward change. It speeds up the reaction of a particular change agent that happens in our life. And so I like to look at myself as a catalyst for change. You know, God is the one who ultimately changes us, Yeshua. He's the one that causes the ultimate change that can change your mind, your whole outlook on life, your whole attitude. I can tell some people that are just so negative, and those of you who don't know, I'm allergic to negative people. I mean, if you're ever around me and if I started scratching myself, you probably realize that your negativity is coming out of your mouth, and it's really, I'm allergic to negative people. I'm allergic to negativity. I love this one lady. She had just an incredible attitude. She woke up one morning, she looked in the mirror, she only had 3 strands of hair. But she had the most positive attitude. She said, well, I think I'll braid my hair today. Well, she woke up the next morning, she had 2 strands. She said, I think I'll part it down the middle today. The next morning when she woke up, guess what? 1 strand of hair. Ponytail. And on the next day, she woke up, not a strand of hair was on her head. And she said, thank God I don't have to do my hair today. Attitude is everything. It really is. Attitude is absolutely everything. And change is inevitable. Growth is optional. You want to be able to grow in your life. And let me tell you this, God is more concerned with your growth and development than he is with your immediate deliverance. And sometimes we're praying to get out of a situation immediately when God wants to change us in the situation, because if you don't get changed in that, then you'll go right back. Even though your circumstances change, you'll end up going back to where you are. And you will never change in your life what you are willing to tolerate. Let me say that again. You will never change in your life what you are willing to tolerate. So you have to make things clear that until I'm fed up with this, until I get to a point where I really don't ever want to tolerate this kind of thing in my life again, I want to be different. I want to walk in a positive direction. I want to be a brand new person. I want to be able to walk in victory of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I want you to know that there are certain things that you have to confront in your life, that you have to look at this thing and say, is this really what I want? But fix your attitude to say, I want to have a change. I want to have a change on the inside of me. John Maxwell says that making the right changes lead to growth, and making the wrong changes lead to grief. So you have to make sure that you're changing the right things that are in your life. I will say this, change is a process, not an event. Say that with me. Change is a process, not an event. And it is. I'll tell you, Gandhi said, we must be the change that we wish to see in the world. We must be the change that we wish to see in the world. So I tell people, don't curse the darkness, light a candle. Light a candle. If you're having some issues in your life right now, may I give you 4 things for you to do? If you're having some issues, here are 4 little simple things. Trace it. Trace it. You need to trace the source of your problem. It's almost like having a leak, and if you can't find the leak, that leak is going to bankrupt you. You better watch out for your next water bill, your next gas bill. If you got a leak and stuff has been seeping out, trace it. You've got to always trace your problem until you deal with the root of it and stop dealing with symptoms. We end up picking the fruit instead of dealing with the root. So trace it, trace it, trace it. Somebody said trace it. And then face it. Once you find the root of it, face that thing. Be real about it. Realize, I've got a problem. I have got a serious, costly problem. And if I don't fix it, it's going to cost me more down the road. I've got to trace it. I've got to face it. Now, once you face the problem, you don't want to just keep looking at it, do you? So you trace it, you face it, and then you erase it. There are certain things that then you need to wipe out of your life. You need to wipe out. You got to trace it. You've got to face it. You've got to erase it. Here's step 4, replace it. And if you don't replace it, you're going to have a void in your life. If you don't replace it, you're going to have to live in your house now without any water, without any gas. You got to replace it. You got to trace it. You got to face it. You got to erase it. And then you got to replace it. You have to do that with people that walk out of your life. Trace it, face it, erase it, replace it. You really do. I mean, it's just a simple formula. I'm a simple guy. I didn't come to complicate you with a whole bunch of grandiloquent, sesquippedalian, and elocution trying to be mellifluous to you. But I just came to really honestly tell you, trace it, face it, erase it, replace it. Is that simple enough for everybody? Can you understand what I'm talking about that? If you got something that's going wrong in your house, in your plumbing system, you got to trace it, you got to face it, you've got to erase it, and then you got to replace it. There's something generally that has to be replaced. If something goes wrong under the hood of your automobile, you got to trace it, face it, erase it, and replace it. It's something that you have to constantly do. If your money is sneaking away from you and you can't figure out where your money went and you still have some month left after all of the money is gone, listen, trace it, face it, erase it, and replace it. Oh, you got it. You're brilliant people. You are brilliant people. I just commend you for that. Let me tell you what Benjamin Franklin said. One of my favorite quotes of Benjamin Franklin, I want to share it with you. He said, empty the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will fill your purse with coins. Empty the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will fill your purse with coins. We have people that instead of putting in an investment into their mind and into their heart, they put it on their back and on their head. Don't waste all of your money on your head. Now, I'm in the hair care business now, so get your hair fixed. You better get your hair did. I mean, keep your hair looking nice, but don't let the investment stop there. Please don't let the investment stop there. You know, I mean, folks that pay hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars for weaves, don't let that be the place where your investment stops. Invest in your head. Listen, if you want to go ahead, you have to grow your head, and you're going to have to invest in it. So take some of the coins from your person and invest it in your mind. So, because if you don't change how you think, you'll never change your life. And that's why I said, I wish that this man who was beside the gate called Beautiful every day from birth, laying there from birth, being brought there to do nothing but beg. You know why? Because you cannot think beyond your level of exposure. You got to be able to ask the right questions. May I tell you what I would have asked had I been in that position? I would have asked, excuse me, sir, do you know anybody else who was crippled who didn't have to beg for a living? Because I'm sick of this and I want to change. When you ask the right questions, you can get out of your situation. If you can say, are there any books that I can read? Is there some CDs that I can listen to? Is there a seminar that I can take? Well, I want to be able to help myself. If you can show me how I can pull myself up from my own bootstraps. Do you know anybody who was in my condition, who was crippled and didn't have to beg for a living? Is there a way that I can make an honest living not being able to use my legs? There's nothing wrong with my mind. There's nothing wrong with my eyes. There's nothing wrong with my hands. Can you show me? If you'll ask the right question instead of asking for a handout, maybe he should have been asking for a hand up. And that's what we ought to do, is to ask for the hand up. Can you spare some change? And some of the best change that you can bring into the life of a person is to say, I'm not giving you another dime. I'm not going to feed your habit any longer. If you really want help, here's how you do it. And you give some people an opportunity to do it and they are too lazy to even do it. Some folks don't want to be helped. But every 10 years of your life is a marker for change. Your life should change every 10 years, every 10 years. I mean, if you're the same at 10 years old as you were at birth, you're retarded. I don't mean that in a cruel way. I mean, you know, but we're designed to grow and to mature. If you're in the same place at 20 as you were at 10, listen, you're lingering. Every 10 years is a marker for change. Doesn't matter whether you're in your tender teens, your tireless 20s, your forcible 40s, your fearful 50s, your seasoned 60s, your settled 70s, your aching 80s, your nebulous 90s, or your pernicious 100s. Wherever you are, every 10 years, your desires ought to change. You ought to want something different at 40 than what you wanted when you were 20. When you get to be 60, you don't have the same desires. You're not chasing after the same stuff, hopefully. I hope that you will grow over the years and that your desires change. If you asked me what I wanted at 10 years old, I might have said, you know, some candy, a bicycle, a skateboard or something. I might have asked for some toy. But I'm not going to ask for a toy now. See, as you grow, your desires will change. Your desires will change. So you ought to want to grow in your life. Grow in your life and ask the right questions. You will get to a total different destination in life if you learn to ask the right question. Solomon became the richest king that ever lived because he didn't ask for money, he asked the right question. If you ask the right question, it'll unlock every other door to a possibility in your life. But if you ask for the thing that looks obvious at the moment, that what will fix my problem is money. No. What will fix your problem is your being able to think properly about who you are, where you are, and what you need to do in order to change your life. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is to ask somebody without asking them for a handout, because you offend people when you ask for a handout when they really want to say, I don't want to just feed your habit, I want to teach you how to fish. And if you'll ask a person, would you please, sir, teach me how to fish? You'll be surprised how much more rapidly you're able to get help if you learn to ask the right questions. Instead of asking for a fish sandwich, ask them to give you fishing lessons. It won't cost them a thing, but an investment of that time. Can you spare some change? Spare some change? I want to talk to you in some ambivalent statements right now. They have two different meanings, and I want you to be sharp enough to catch the ambivalence of these statements. Pray for a change. Now that means two different things. It means if you need a change in your life, pray. That's one thing. But it also means, in another meaning, if you haven't been praying and you've been trying to do things yourself in the flesh by your own smarts, by your own connections, trying to finagle ways, it's saying, hey, why don't you pray for a change? Pray for a change. Then here I want to say this, believe for a change. You ought to believe in your heart. Anybody who comes to God, to Yeshua, must believe that he is, and that he is a reward of them that diligently seek him. But then if you've been a doubting Thomas, always have something negative to say, and that'll never work. I've already tried putting in an application. I got application in at 3 different places right now, ain't nobody called me. Then maybe you ought to believe for a change. Instead of doubting everything, why don't you just believe that something good is going to happen to you today? Why don't you just expect that my life is going to turn around, that this is my season and the best is yet to come, that I'm a blessing on my way somewhere to happen, that something good is going to happen to me today. Touch your neighbor and say, something good is going to happen to me today. Just believe for a change. Believe for a change. And listen, don't leave it at praying for a change. Don't leave it at just believing for a change. I want you to then work for a change. Roll up your sleeves. Be willing to do whatever is necessary. I'm going to work for a change. And I'm going to work for it. I'm going to work for it. Now for the others, the other meaning of work for a change, it means that you haven't been working. And instead of living off of the system and borrowing money off of everybody else that passes by, why don't you get up and go to work for a change? Don't tell me that you've been looking for a job, Get out. You can't do it all in front of your computer. Get out, beat the streets, build relationships with people. You'll be surprised. You need to get out and start meeting folks and making something happen. I don't feel sorry for anybody who's hungry and they haven't gone hunting. You're sitting up there looking at a menu, talking about I'm hungry. No. When you really get hungry, you get something that you can kill something with. And I mean, even if you come home empty-handed, at least I can say I shot at it. I gave it my best shot. I had a fishing pole in the water all day long. I wasn't just sitting at home hoping, praying, and believing. I'm working for a change. Touch your neighbor, say, I'm working on something. I'm working on something. I'm working on something. You have to work for a change. Believe for a change. Pray for a change. I hope you understand the ambivalence of that. Here's a good one. Thinking for a change. My God, what a novel idea. Some people's brains are going to be so well preserved at death. When you really learn to think for a change, your thinking is going to determine the course of your life. It will determine the real course of your life. And you see, they say that time changes things, but actually you have to change them yourself. Because if you leave something to time, it'll grow worse. You leave it to time and nature will overtake it. So time won't just fix everything. You have to actually change them yourself. Spare a little change. May I tell you just a few reasons as to why some people don't change? I said, number one, fear. People don't change because they're just afraid of change. Because change means the ending of the way that you've been doing things. So it means there's something that's going to stop. So fear. Number two, pride. There's some people that are just wrong as two left shoes, but they have too much pride to admit that they were wrong. You know, they say, well, you know, it wasn't my fault. They didn't even let nobody know. Just pride. They just won't even, just say you were wrong. Well, you got in the way of my fist. Just pride. Number three, laziness. You can tell somebody where they can get help, how they can help themselves, and they're too lazy to do it. Well, you know, I didn't have any transportation. I was interviewing somebody for a job one day, and I asked them, I said, do you have transportation? They said, I don't have a car. I didn't ask them if they had a car. You can get your cousin to drop you off over here. You can take a taxi. I don't care how you get here. I asked you, do you have transportation to work? I didn't ask you if you had a car. You're talking yourself out of a job. You know, so immediately when they said that, I'm like, here's somebody who can't even figure out how to get to an opportunity that I am putting before them. They're too lazy to figure out an opportunity that is set before them. So you'd be surprised how laziness, it takes effort and energy to change. Number four, ignorance. If you don't know something else that you can change into, it locks you into where you are. Ignorance. Number five, rebellion. There are some people can know the right thing to do and they just won't do it. They just will not do it to save their life. They can know the right thing and they're just rebellious. It's like, oh, I know which way I know what time I was supposed to be home. I'll tell you about a billionaire friend that I spent some time with. And he had taught his son two principles. And he was a stern man. And his son came home after his curfew one night. Daddy was still sitting up 2 o'clock in the morning waiting on his son. He's supposed to be there at 12. He comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning. His dad is sitting up just waiting on him. As soon as he opened the door, he sees his daddy. And he uses on his daddy the two principles that his daddy told him. Which was this: I was wrong and I'm sorry. And he walked in the house. He looked at his daddy. He said, Daddy, I was wrong and I'm sorry. The daddy told me, he said, what could I do? He said, I didn't say anything. He said, I just shrugged my shoulders and carried myself upstairs and went to bed. You'd be surprised what'll happen. But you see, his son knew what time to be home. It was rebellion in him where he wouldn't change. Number six, a person is unable to recognize the need for change. This is the kind of mentality that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Unable to recognize the need for change. Here's number seven, procrastination. I'll do it later. I'll change later. Number eight, the change is against their belief system. The change is against their belief system. If something is against your belief system, you'll never plug into it. And then number nine is having neither purpose nor goals in life. It is difficult or nearly impossible to motivate a person to change if they have no goals, if there's nothing for which they are stretching for. There was a man that was climbing Mount Everest, and he got to a certain altitude, and you know you have to deal with acclimatization. There's thinner oxygen in the atmosphere, and he died there. And there's a marker on Mount Everest as a tribute to his death. And here's the epitaph that was written there, indicating his death there on the mountain. He died climbing. He died climbing. I would hope that it would be said of you that you died climbing, trying to do better, trying to reach a higher level in life, pushing for something beyond what you have already mastered. If you don't reach beyond something that you have already mastered, you will never grow. He died climbing. Come out of your comfort zone. Get up to another level. The view is better. Your perspective will change, and you'll have the ability to impact the lives of more people. And so I just want you to know that there are some times that God will let you lose some things, because loss is a divine tool used to birth a desire for change. And awareness is the beginning of change. Until you become aware that there's something better that you can do, you'll never change. And all change begins with a decision. When I made a decision over 26 years ago to marry a girl, to decide, say decide. It's the Latin word decidere, which means to cut off. Every time you make a decision, incision means to cut into. Excision means to cut out. But decision means to cut off. When I made one decision to marry one woman one time, I cut off the option to being with any other woman. And you're looking at a man now, I'm in my 26th year of marriage, and I've never known another woman in all of the days of my life because of a decision. It's the power of decision. You cut off because of the power of decision. And I just want you to know that the change that God has produced in you, don't let it stop with you. Your change needs to be spared in the lives of others, where you don't merely give them a handout, but that you give them a hand up saying, listen, if you really are serious about this, I want you to read this book and then get back to me. If you're really serious about making something out of your life, stay in school. If you're really serious, I mean, where you press them, it won't cost you a dime necessarily. Sometimes it will. But spare change in the lives of others. Become a catalyst, an agent for change, and say, God, I want you to use me. Use me to help affect change in somebody else's life. The same thing that you've done to me in graciousness in helping to change my life, God, may you use my life as an agent of change to inspire change in the lives of others.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.